Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada निताय गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, निताय गौरा हरि बोल। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सत His Divine Grace अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा श्री सुदर्शन की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोरेश्वर की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग की जय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललितान्वितांश्च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनतारिणम्। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। आराध्यो भगवान् व्रजेशतनय तद्धाम वृन्दावनं रम्या काचिदुपासना व्रजवधू वर्गेण या कल्पिता। श्रीमद्भागवतं प्रमाणममलं प्रेमापुमर्थो महान् श्रीचैतन्यमहाप्रभोर्मतमिदं तत्रादरः न परः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Devotees can keep their mobiles on silent mode.
Hare Krishna. Today I was asked to speak on the topic of relationships amongst devotees. And this is a very important topic. And the topic was with special reference to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And of course in general also. Vaishnava relationships and indeed all relationships are very important for us. Because whenever there is a disturbance in relationships, it causes a great disturbance in mind. Even if you are in your college, most of you here are students, or at your workplace where you may not have devotees around you, or some relatives who are not devotees. So even when relationships with non-devotees is disturbed for some reason, it causes a great disturbance in our mind. It disrupts our schedules, it disrupts our state of mind, our peace of mind. And what to speak of relationships with devotees? Even when the relationships with non-devotees, when they get disrupted, they disturb us so much, how much more disturbance is created when our relationships with devotees are spoiled in some way. Because you can rationalize other types of relationships by saying, and to some extent that is correct, that, well, I'm spending only a little bit of time with my office people. I spend time there. Anyway, office, there's a lot of politics that goes on. Anyway, this happens or that happens. So we justify it and we say, okay. But in the devotee community, we have invested so much of our mental energy, our emotions, our hopes, our aspirations, everything revolves around the devotee community. Because there is no question of Krishna consciousness without devotees association. So when something happens there, then that disturbs us even more. The disturbance in our life is magnified when the same kind of relationship disturbance happens in the community of devotees. So is it going to happen? Yes, of course. Why? Because we are all human beings. And no two human beings think alike and act alike in every respect. Even when we are devotees, we have our individuality. We also have our way of thinking, our way of acting. We have our svabhava, our nature, which forces us to act and speak and think in a certain way. So it is natural that there will be some disturbances also in the devotee community. After all, we have not been parachuted from Vaikuntha as perfect beings. Even if we are devotees, we may not be perfect devotees. Therefore, the little defects that plague our consciousness will manifest in our relationships. Where did that sound come from? More than relationships disturbing, it is a mobile phone that disturbs. Yeah? Actually, it's a fact. It is spoiling our relationships with people. This one instrument, this mobile phone. Because we want to be close to people who are far away and we become very close to them by talking. Now there's video calling, so many things. And we ignore the person who's sitting in front of us. Even when we're having a meeting, we are talking, we're having a discussion, and then we take up the phone and we speak someone. So this is one of the factors that disturbs Vaishnava relationship also. Not just Vaishnava relationships, but all relationships. So anyway, since we have come to Krishna consciousness because of the Krishna consciousness we did in the previous life. That is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also. Therefore, we have not become perfect, we are in the path to become perfect. So because of the imperfections that we have, naturally there will be some disturbances in our relationships as well. So, what are the factors that are important for us to keep in mind in ensuring that the relationships between devotees are harmonious and pleasing? First and most important, we must be Krishna conscious. Otherwise, what is the main meaning of being a devotee? The very simple foundational principle of all Vaishnava relationships is the level of Krishna consciousness. The more Krishna conscious we are, the better will be the quality of our relationships. The less Krishna conscious we are, the more the likelihood of some disturbance coming up because of the anarthas in our heart, because of the disturbances in our own mind, because of the separate interest that we have from Krishna. This is called Prithak Bhavam. Prithak Bhavam or Bhinnadrik as per Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd. So when we have a consciousness that is different from Krishna's interests, then that is called Prithak Bhavam. Prithak means separate, different. So when we want to have good relationships, we must have a common goal, common unified vision of acting, speaking, thinking. That doesn't mean that we are all robots and that we have to think and act alike in every respect. That's not necessary. You may like oranges and somebody may like bananas. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but you are going to be different. And you are going to be unrealistic in expecting that he should also like bananas. I like bananas, he should also like bananas. So this is a very simplistic example, but we must recognize that there will always be variegatedness in human beings and all living entities. That is the meaning of individuality. We don't want to create a society of robots, of machines, where we will all be exactly the same in every respect. That is not only not possible, but it is not even desirable. But what we want is that with all our diversity in nature, in thinking, in speaking, in personality types, and so on, we are unified together harmoniously because of that one common interest, that is Krishna. So if you keep Krishna in the center, in other words, if you are Krishna conscious, then the likelihood of conflicts and disturbances and arguments will be diminished greatly. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of throwing a pebble into a pond which has stagnant or stationary water. So you will notice that at the point at which the pebble strikes the water, that forms the center of some ripples or waves that emanate from that point and go outwards in ever increasing circles. Of course, they will fade away after some time, they will get weaker. But now, if you throw two pebbles, so at different points in the pond, then both of them will start radiating circles that move outwards. Then what will happen? Those circles will clash, they will collide. So if you throw both stones at exactly the same point, precisely the same point, what will happen? There will be no clash. On the contrary, the waves generated by the two pebbles one after the other will reinforce each other and become stronger and stronger. So that central point is Krishna, or it is our basic interest. If you have your interest separate from Krishna, I have my interest separate from Krishna, and each of us has our own interest separate from Krishna, then it is like we are throwing these pebbles in different portions of the pond, and then the waves are constantly colliding. In other words, we clash, we have differences of opinion. Of course, as I said earlier, it is not a problem to have differences of opinion. It's quite fine. But we'll talk about it in a few minutes. What does it mean to have these differences of opinion? And how do we resolve them? So anyway, if everybody's point of interest is the same, that is Krishna, then everybody's thinking, everybody's actions will reinforce, and everyone will be able to serve Krishna wholeheartedly with great vigor and enthusiasm. So this is that most important point. To keep Krishna in the center, in other words, to be Krishna conscious. When we are devotees, we are all Krishna conscious, but to some degree. Some are Krishna conscious to a lesser degree, some to a larger degree, some to an even larger degree, and so on. So, very few people strike the stone exactly at that central point. So, we may have Krishna's interest is at one point in that lake, and then I throw a stone slightly further away. Somebody else throws it also slightly further away in a different direction. So even though we are Krishna conscious, but because we are not perfectly Krishna conscious, so there is always some clashing going on, some colliding going on. But if it is a deviation that is very minor, that gets resolved easily. But if it is a deviation that is rather major, then that is difficult to resolve. That causes pain. So the foundation of good Vaishnava relationships is, the bottom line is Krishna consciousness. To be as Krishna conscious as possible, the more Krishna conscious every single individual in the devotee community is, the higher the chances that that community will have a very harmonious and pleasing quality or level of relationships amongst the devotees. So this is the most important point. And that includes all other points actually. But because it's not so easy to figure out, so we need to unpack that a bit. What aspects of Krishna consciousness do we need to keep in mind in order to enhance the quality of Vaishnava relationships or minimize or eliminate disturbances in our relationships? So let's unpack this. So when we need to focus on relationships, naturally to be Krishna conscious, you have to chant the holy name. Chanting the holy name is the most important thing. That is the heart of a Vaishnava's life. That is Krishna consciousness. So I'll just talk to you briefly about a group of devotees from a village called Kulinagram who used to visit the Jagannath Ratha Yatra every year to get the association of not only Lord Jagannath but also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated them a lot because of their service attitude. They were specialists in making silk ropes because they were some kind of weavers or something like that. So every year they would bring very strong silk ropes, and which were used to carry the deities of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra from the sanctum sanctorum, that is the temple inside, to the Rath. Because the deities are very heavy, So the ropes were needed that would be very strong. So these devotees led by Satyaraj Khan, they would bring these ropes. So Mahaprabhu was very happy with this service. So before they departed for Kulinagram, these devotees came to Mahaprabhu and they asked, we are all householders engaged in materialistic life. So please give us an instruction of how we can progress in our spiritual life. So here is what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says. Prabhu Kaina Krishna Seva Vaishnava Sevana Nirantara Kara Krishna Nama Sankirtana. Prabhu Kaina. So Mahaprabhu replied, Krishna Seva Vaishnava Sevana Nirantara Kara Krishna Nama Sankirtana. So he said, serve Krishna, serve the Vaishnavas, and always chant the holy names. So these are the three things that Mahaprabhu told them. What are the three instructions? Serve Krishna, serve the Vaishnavas, the devotees, always chant the holy name. Then he said, then Satyaraj Khan asked an important question because Mahaprabhu said, serve the Vaishnavas. So Satyaraj Khan's question was, who is a Vaishnava? Yes? Important question? So Prabhu kohe pyara mukhe shunai ekbar Krishna nama shay pujya shrestha sabakar. He says, whoever from whose ever mouth the name of Krishna is vibrated even once. If you hear the name of Krishna even once from some person, Shai Pujya Shrestha Shabakar, then he is worshipable and he is the best among all human beings. So, what is the definition of Vaishnava as given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? That person from whose mouth you hear the name of Krishna even once is worshipable and the best amongst all. So when you say, when Mahaprabhu said once, in the purports, Prabhupada and the Acharyas have explained that it should not be an offensive name. It should be at least offenseless, if not the pure name. But still, the fact that only one name is chanted by somebody and then we consider that person worshipable. Now we may think, well, so many people are chanting names of Krishna, so we should worship everybody. Well, yes, but there are different degrees and different manners in which we should worship, and I'll come to that in a few minutes also. Now, the next year, they again came for Rath Yatra. And they again approached Mahaprabhu before leaving Jagannath Puri. And they said, what is our duty and how should we execute it? Please tell us. So, this is the second year. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva nama sankirtana doi karo shighra pabe Shri Krishna charana. So, Mahaprabhu gave them the following instructions. Vaishnava seva, nama sankirtana, doi karo, do these two things. Which two things? Serve the Vaishnavas, chant the holy names. Shighra pabe Shri Krishna charana. Very quickly you will attain the lotus feet of Krishna. So earlier Mahaprabhu had said, serve Krishna, serve the Vaishnavas, chant the holy names. This time he's saying, serve the Vaishnavas, chant the holy names. That includes Vaishnav Seva also. So naturally, Satyaraj Khan asked the natural question. What is the question? Who is a Vaishnava? Right? Previously also he asked the same question. Now he's asking who is a Vaishnava, and let us see if Mahaprabhu gives the same answer or a different answer. Krishna Nama Nirantara Jahara Vadane Shai Vaishnava Shrestha Bhajatahara Charane. Krishna Nama Nirantara Jahara Vadane, from whose Vadana or mouth emanates the holy name of Krishna, Nirantar, always. Shai Vaishnava Shrestha. Vaishnava is the topmost. Bhajatahara Charane. And your duty is to serve that Vaishnava's lotus feet. Now, they went back happy with this instruction. And they came back the next day for Rath Yatra. And they again asked the same question. And Mahaprabhu gave the same answer. And in response, Satyaraj Khan asked the same question, which is, who is a Vaishnava? So the third year in succession also, Mahaprabhu said, serve the Vaishnavas, chant the holy name of the Lord. Again, the third time, when Satyaraj Khan asked the question, who is a Vaishnava? At that time, what did Mahaprabhu say? Jahara darshane mukhe aise Krishna naam, tahare janiya tumi Vaishnava pradhan. Jahara darshane, just by looking at whom? Mukhe ashe Krishna naam. We get inspired to chant the holy name of Krishna just by looking at a particular person. Tahara janiha tumi Vaishnava pradhan. So that Vaishnava is the topmost amongst all Vaishnavas. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given 3 definitions of Vaishnava. What are the 3 definitions? First, from whose name you hear the name of Krishna even once. That Vaishnava is worshipable and is best amongst all human beings. So this Vaishnava is chanting once you have heard him chant. The second definition of Vaishnava is Nirantara, one who is chanting the holy name constantly. That is Vaishnava. He is best amongst all. And the third definition, one Vaishnava by simply looking at whom the names of Krishna come out from your mouth, you feel inspired to chant. That is the Vaishnava Pradhan, the topmost amongst all Vaishnavas. In this way, Mahaprabhu has given here 2 types of instructions. 1, what is the way to make spiritual progress? And incidentally, that also happens to be the formula for good relationships amongst Vaishnavas. Because if you are not doing these 2 things, there cannot be good relationships in the devotee community. What is that? Chanting the holy name and serving the devotees. If we are not doing this, then we will not be able to have good relationships. So, when it means chanting the holy names, we must make sure that we are doing that properly in terms of japa, in terms of kirtan. And the more we chant the holy names, the greater is our level of Krishna consciousness. So the more Krishna conscious you are, the better will be your relationships with everybody. But, Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai. But along with Krishna consciousness, you're just sitting and chanting, you could get proud, thinking I'm chanting 64 rounds every day. So it may happen. There's a very clear possibility of such a thing happening. So we must not only chant the holy names, although at a certain level that's all that is required. Like Haridas Thakur, if he's only chanting the holy names, doing nothing else, even that is simply extraordinary. But Haridas Thakur also exemplified a perfect Vaishnava. He also showed what it means to be a Vaishnava. He was always humble. he never became proud that he was constantly chanting the holy names. So we may be chanting the holy names, but unless we are in a mood of humble service to the devotees, we will never get the perfection of chanting the holy names. So this ego, this pride, this desire for name and fame and prestige and so on, all these are great obstacles. So therefore, Mahaprabhu very wisely has added a second point here. He didn't say only chant the holy name, even though that is good dharma. But in order to chant the holy name always and properly and not be affected by anything negative, he said you have to serve the Vaishnavas. To serve the Vaishnavas, you have to be humble. And therefore, yesterday, if you remember, we were discussing Mahaprabhu's verses that he chanted during the Rath Yatra. And I mentioned that you all should remember the last line at least of one verse. What is that? Gopi bhartuhu kamalayor dasa dasanu dasaha. And you would have noticed that Mahaprabhu says dasa dasanu dasaha, not boss bossanu bossaha. Yes? So the idea that we are the boss of others, even if we are seniors, even if we are in some position, that is something we have to be very cautious about. So Mahaprabhu identifies this principle as a foundational principle of his identity. What is my identity? Mahaprabhu says, I am the servant of the servant of Krishna, who is the master of the gopis. So this is what it means to be a Vaishnava. This is what it means to serve the Vaishnavas. Unless we are in this spirit, why should we serve the Vaishnavas? We will think others should serve me. One time Srila Prabhupada was speaking on this point, and he was explaining what it means to be a das. He said that is why our names end in das. After we take so Krishna Das, Jagannath Das. So he said, but it's not something just as a formality that we accept the name Das. We should also be a Das, means a servant. You have the name Das, but then you think you are Swami or Prabhu, then that is not good. We call others as Prabhu, but we ourselves are Das. So we should never introduce ourselves as Prabhu. I am so and so Prabhu. No. We call others as Prabhu. I am Das. So Srila Prabhupada one time, he was making an imaginary scenario. A devotee is proud, and he's addressing the other devotee as Prabhu, but he does so, no, yes, he does so in a way that shows that he doesn't actually believe that he's the Das. So Prabhupada was mimicking such an imaginary devotee. And he says, Nanda Putra Das, here and polish my shoes. So he was trying to indicate that even though you may think of yourself you may claim that you are the Das and others your Prabhu, your words and actions don't indicate that. So we have to internalize this conception that I am the servant of all devotees. Unless this very important principle is there in our consciousness and we are chanting the holy names properly, there is no question of good relationships amongst devotees. It will last for some time. Of course, we do have good relationships. We see other people also in the outside world have relationships. That's fine. It's based on some common footing. But even in the outside world, you will see where ego and pride and self-interest are predominant. There, the frequency of relationships getting disrupted is very high. So therefore, you will see in marital relationships, divorces happening very frequently, even amongst friends and among office colleagues. There's so many problems happening all the time. So this one principle of being a servant or wanting to serve others is missing. In today's whole social scenario, political scenario, in whichever scenario you take, this idea that I'm here to serve has only become a slogan. Political leaders, for example, will say, I'm here to serve all of you, but that is the last thing he wants to do. Isn't it? He wants to take our service. Nobody enters, or very, very few people enter politics today to actually serve. Very, very few people enter the medical profession today to serve. Everyone, or most people at least, to be fair, there may be some, but most people enter such activities for furthering their materialistic self-interest. Either it is their economic development or wanting power and prestige, whatever it is. So we come with that baggage into the devotee community. And we've also carrying this baggage from so many lifetimes. So the spillover or residual traces of these things remain in us. So even when we come to the devotee community, we find these problems. So till we have internalized this conception of us being servant of the devotees, until we have this practice of chanting the holy names as purely as possible, as much as possible, till then it is not possible to have perfect relationships amongst Vaishnavas. So we see here all through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the devotees also had their differences, but it was very easily resolved because they were all very Krishna conscious and they all saw each other as servants of the Lord. So now, when it comes to being a servant of the devotees, should you give the same kind of respect and service to all the devotees? The answer is no. We should respect all devotees, but different degrees of service and respect are to be offered to different levels of Vaishnavas. That is also brought out, the second point that is brought out by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this passage. So he has explained the two things, being a servant of the devotees and chanting the holy name. But what is the reason behind giving three different definitions of who is a devotee? To indicate that there are different levels of devotees. For example, in a school or a college, everyone is a student. From the first standard up to the 10th or 12th standard, all are students. But there is a difference between a student in the second standard, student in the 12th standard, student doing PhD is also a student. All are students, but there is a distinction also to be made. Similarly, amongst devotees also, there are gradations. Some are newcomers, some are mediocre, some are more advanced, some may be very advanced. So naturally, our service should be of a different type. Although underlying all this service should be a mindset of offering respect and avoiding offenses. That should be there across the board. But given that, there will be some gradations. So, Srila Prabhupada has explained that the first category of the Vaishnava, from whose mouth you hear the name of Krishna one time, he is called Kanishta Adhikari. He is a Vaishnava, but he is in a lower grade Vaishnava. By lower grade, I don't mean it in a negative sense, but in the sense that he has not advanced so much. You hear occasionally chant the name of Krishna. Still, because the name of Krishna is coming from his mouth, you have to respect him. Also Vaishnava is Kanishta. Kanishta means a junior or a neophyte or a newcomer. Second, the second category of Vaishnava who is chanting Nirantara, always chanting. He is the Madhyama Adhikari, or he is a Vaishnava in the intermediate level. He is quite advanced, but still intermediate, hasn't reached very, very exalted level. So naturally, you have to serve this Vaishnava more than you serve the others. But mind you, it doesn't mean that you neglect the new Vaishnava in order to serve the Madhyamadikari. It's not that now that the other one has come, you forget this one and you neglect him. No, that also should go on. But the quality of respect and the service that you offer to a Madhyamadikari will be a little more. It will be qualitatively different from the service and respect you offer to the Kanishta Adhikari. And who is the third kind of Vaishnava? Uttamadhikari, one by simply seeing whom one feels inspired to chant the names of Krishna. That is something exceptional. It's not easy to find. You just see somebody and feel Hare Krishna, you want to say Krishna's names. The Uttamadhikari. So, Adhikari refers to the qualification or eligibility. So one has the adhikar, or very high level of devotional service of Krishna consciousness. So that person should be offered the greatest amount of respect and service. So the principle of respect and service is across the board to all Vaishnavas and actually even to non-devotees. We should offer respect to all. Even the animals, the plants, the trees, the insects, everyone, we should offer respect. So, for example, we should not kick, even if there's a dog or an animal, just kick. No, we should not do that. There's a super soul in the heart of that animal also. Don't insult or offend anyone as far as possible. And especially when it comes to devotees, the principle of respect has to continue all through. But the degrees will differ depending on the elevation of that particular devotee in Krishna consciousness. So whilst maintaining respect, the devotee must also have that sense of discrimination. He must have the knowledge to understand. It should not be simply sentimental, and one should understand from a philosophical angle also who is who. So let us also further unpack a few other items. Practically speaking, what are the issues that create problems amongst devotees? One may be a personality nature issue. For example, you're having some discussion and someone has the nature to think my way or the highway. Yes, what I think is right, it must happen like this. Should we have pink colored curtains or yellow colored curtains in the temple? No, I think it should be yellow and twice it should happen. So then that causes some friction. So now I'm talking about more practical things we experience in day-to-day life. So a devotee will also be open to hearing the opinions of other devotees and not think that only what I'm thinking is right and that should be the only thing that should be done. We may have our opinions, but at the end of the day, we should submit to the collective opinions of the Vaishnavas. That doesn't mean that if we are in a group and tomorrow somebody says that Indra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we should say yes, we should go along with that. Keeping Guru Sadhu Shastra as a foundation, we must operate like this. So even in our practical dealings, whether we are doing some devotional service or we are in just casual dealings, we must also know, we must always be willing to take into account the opinions and feelings of our devotees. Number two, if we have the desire for some post or some prestige We want the credit. To that degree, there will be a disturbance in the relationships. Because everybody is working collectively to do something. Like, for example, yesterday, such a magnificent Rath Yatra festival was organized. Hundreds and hundreds of devotees have rendered service. Somebody has to take responsibilities, somebody has to take the leading roles. So many devotees were doing that, and many other devotees were serving in the background. Everyone was serving very nicely with great enthusiasm and sincerity. So it became such a wonderful festival. But if somebody is excessively concerned that I should get the credit, I should get the respect, then that becomes a problem. Hmm? So Vaishnava is not so eager to get credit for something or to get some respect for something. Neither is a Vaishnava attached to any particular position or a designation. Somebody has to get the position in order to run an organization or run any group of individuals. And so sometimes a devotee may be obliged to accept a certain position. But the devotee is not attached to that position. The devotee is willing to give up that position if that is what it will help to serve Krishna better. If that is what will help to make relationships between devotees better. So we should not be attached to post, to position, to prestige, to name and fame and respect and all of that. And certainly at a very gross level, that doesn't happen much, sometimes, but very rarely. If we are attached to making some personal profit financially or this way or that way from some issue, then that also creates a disturbance. Let's say we are working together for the temple, some project we are doing, somebody has a personal financial interest and they want to do something, they can also earn some money out of it. So to the degree that our personal interests are mixed in the decision making or in wanting to do devotional service, that also will eventually cause disturbance, because tomorrow somebody else will object to that and that will cause some clashes and so on and so forth. So therefore, we have to see these are the different factors, and there are several others as well, common sense factors which I have spoken about now. So we have to keep these in mind, keep the community of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the dealing of Chaitanya Charitamrita in mind. One time, Srila Prabhupada said that in Bhagavad Gita we understand what is the perfection of life, that is devotional service to Krishna, to become a pure devotee. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it goes one step further. We hear about how the Vrindavan and other great devotees in history, whether in the mood of Vaikuntha or in the mood of Dwarka or Vrindavan, how they perfected their lives. So we find that all over the Srimad Bhagavatam. But these personalities usually were in the distant past. Even 5,000 years ago is quite far back in time. Then what to speak of Treta Yuga and Satya Yuga, which were like lakhs and lakhs of years in the past. So Chaitanya Charitamrita gives us another way of doing devotional service to whom we can relate. It's more realistic. So in the Bhagavatam, we hear about how great devotees in the past rendered devotional service. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, through the example of the community of devotees around Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can learn how you and I can do devotional service. So it is more relatable because it is not that distant in time. And the events that are happening here are very much relatable to us. For example, there was a devotee called Vasudev Datta. He was a pure devotee, very compassionate, and exemplary devotional qualities. but he was a householder, and somehow or the other, he didn't know how to manage his household finances, so there were problems in the house. Because the Grihastha must know how to manage the money, otherwise, how will you survive? So, it came to the notice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, he called Shivananda Sen, another Grihastha devotee, who was also very elevated and an intimate associate of Mahaprabhu. Shivananda Sen was not only a great devotee, but he was also worldly wise. He understood how the world operates. He was a good businessman also. So he understood the dealings of money and all of that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Shivananda Sen and he told him, Shivananda, look, our dear Vasudev, he is a very simple-hearted devotee, but he doesn't know how to handle money, and therefore his family life has some difficulties. So you should help him, train him up, and handle his finances so that his family will not have difficulty. Whenever he gets money, he immediately spends it. So Mahaprabhu is giving a hint that whenever you get money as a householder, don't immediately spend everything. There are some things to be done. You have to keep some money. You have to save up something. So there are ways to handle things, especially in the modern times. Now these are issues that people today can relate to very easily. Because people are earning money, then they have to take a loan, they can't pay back the loan, so there are so many problems. So it needs some devotees who are worldly wise, who can guide devotees. Look, don't get into this, it's a scam. Just because you think you can double your money in so much time, don't get into this. Similarly, they can advise you what to do with your money, what your family situation. There are issues devotees of Mahaprabhu had amongst the family. So how to resolve those issues? So these issues are very relatable to us in this day and age. So when we study Chaitanya Charitamrita, we get practical guidelines on how to handle our life even as devotees of Krishna. So therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita pastimes are so important for us. It shows us how you and I in this age can also live together as a harmonious, loving community and still manage our personal and family affairs perfectly, or at least as well as possible. Hare Krishna, it's already 9:15. I think I've gone beyond the time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So just brief one or two questions if anyone has. Yes. Make your questions to the point and relevant to the topic. Yes. You have to speak a little louder.
Maharaj, you were mentioning about the chanting the holy names. How it is able to enhance the relationship between the devotees. Serving is understandable without chanting and exercise.
Okay, good question. The question is that Mahaprabhu talked about two things that we must do, serving the Vaishnavas and chanting the holy name. So by serving the Vaishnavas, we can improve our relationships with the devotees, that is understandable. But by chanting the holy names, how do we improve our relationships with the devotees? Yes, that's the question. And the answer is very simple. By chanting the holy names, you will become Krishna conscious. When you become Krishna conscious, all the anarthas, the unwanted things in the heart, the separate interest will automatically vanish or at least diminish. So then all the negative things in our heart that cause barriers in the development of good relationships in the devotee community, those will be reduced, lowered, or they will disappear. So the more Krishna, therefore I said to start with, the most fundamental principle of good relationships in the devotee community is to be more Krishna conscious. The more Krishna conscious the devotees are, the better will be the quality of relationships in that community. Okay? Any other question? Yes.
Thank you for the profound subject. Actually, when we are coming towards together for some meeting, when we are also thinking about Krishna's benefit, what will be best benefit the service, and which will be the best way. But then there also we have that difference of opinion, how like the classes will get resolved.
Okay, so the question is, you're speaking from experience?
Both are having experience, different experience.
What is your name?
Anook.
Anook. So Anook is also speaking from experience. He says that sometimes we all want to serve Krishna. We come together for a meeting to discuss some particular service, but we end up having differences of opinions on how that service should be done. Sounds familiar? How many people have experience of this? Raise your hands. Everybody. As I said, it is not unusual to have differences of opinions. Don't be afraid of differences of opinion. It's bound to happen. It's natural. Because as I said earlier, we are not robots, we are not machines. We all have our individuality, our way of thinking. We are all different. What unites us is Krishna. So, there will be differences, undoubtedly. But there should not be differences on basic things. Indra is Supreme Personality of Godhead or Krishna is Supreme Personality. At least on that front, there should be no difference. Otherwise, that person should not be in this community. He should be in some Indra conscious community, not Krishna conscious community. But within the framework of Krishna consciousness, yes, there will be 100% there will be differences of opinion, not 95%. 100% there will be. So the question is that we should not have unnecessary differences. First point. The more Krishna conscious you are and the more wise you are as a result of being Krishna conscious and also having experience of how the world works and how people are, unnecessary differences of opinion will come down a lot. Number one. And number two, when the differences do arise, you will be better equipped as a Krishna conscious devotee to deal with those differences in an amicable way and bring about a solution. Even after all of that, and that is also seen in the devotee community, sometimes solutions may not come. So despite our best efforts, if the solutions don't come, then what are the conclusions we draw from it? Number one, perhaps we are not Krishna conscious enough. Number one. Number two, perhaps we're still making some mistakes and we need to introspect at a practical level what mistakes we are making. And third, maybe that's Krishna's will at the end of it. Maybe that's how Krishna wants it. But as Krishna wants it can't be the thing at the first step. I want pink curtains, not yellow. No, Krishna wants it. That is something that's there only at the very, very end of everything. If all the very Krishna conscious devotees are trying their best, and still something is not getting resolved, perhaps we also have to look in for our own mistakes. We're not doing things right in some way. And at the end of it all, it's Krishna. Okay? All right. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Shri Jagannath Mandir Bengaluru Yatra ki jai. Hare Krishna. And congratulations to all of you for a wonderful Rath Yatra festival yesterday. Switch it off.
Maharaj for this wonderful deep topic and so much supply. And Maharaj has been expert in Vaishnava relationships, and hearing from Maharaj itself is a great benediction for all of us. And yesterday's Yatra, Rath Yatra, I was thinking why there are so much number of devotees. So one of the reasons presence of His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj. So devotees came, and first time we are doing it on Sunday, so that also helped to have more devotees there. So we thank Maharaj for untimely chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Request Maharaj to regularly give his association by coming to the temple so that we can learn more Vaishnava Sadachara and Vaishnava etiquettes. So we will thank Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.